salatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Some brothers had asked me to open up this time so that if they had any questions, inshallah, we can help answer some of those questions. Some of the previous questions that I had received was on purchasing homes here in the United States, student debt and student loans, are they permissible or not? How we are supposed to interact with the opposite gender in the masjid. So if we have any other questions, inshallah, that anyone has, I'm more than willing to address them if there's anything specific. There are other questions that people have asked that I can share and I can speak about, but if there's anything anybody would like me to address today, the floor is open. Go ahead. Walaikum assalam. You have a question? Or? No? Okay. تفضل.
Also the loans for the cars as well as
طيب جيد ممتاز. So the question that we received was on purchasing cars. So is it permissible for me now to purchase a car on loan, right? Because it's not like a house. The main difference between a house and a car is that a house is something that we call an appreciating asset. An appreciating asset is something that increases in value over time versus a car, which is something that depreciates over time. And I would say in that situation, number one, it depends on how an individual views riba, right? So riba we had talked about before. On your view, whether does it apply only to commodity currency or does it also apply to fiat currency? And when it deals with fiat currency, which is paper currency, with what we deal with today, if you are of the opinion that it doesn't apply there, depending on what the interest rate is and depending on what the inflation rate is, then in that situation, if it is below that, then it's permissible to buy a car if it's above that. So you have many different rates for many different cars. Sometimes you have dealers who will sell it at 0% APR. Sometimes you have dealers who will sell it at 0.9% APR. So when it's below a certain threshold, and that's usually set by the Federal Reserve, then you will have some scholars, not all, who will allow it as long as it is below that threshold. And then you will have other scholars who will say it is impermissible because, again, it is riba. There are situations where I have openly allowed it for individuals. Brothers have come to me saying that, listen, the only skill set I have is driving. The only thing I know how to do is drive. I've always been a taxi driver. I need a car. And in order for me to purchase a reliable car and something that will get me where I need to go, and for something to have a good look when I get when I get customers, I need to have something new. So for those individuals, I said it is permissible for them to go ahead. There's no restriction on that because it is something that will help them get their rizq and get their kasb, and it is something that is necessary for them to practice, and in order for them to live their life. Now, as far as it comes to the average person, it depends. Again, unfortunately it's not a clear-cut answer. It's not something that I can say it's absolutely haram. But sometimes you have individuals, for example, single mothers, who don't have the chance or don't have the ability or don't have the choice, to always go to a mechanic or even trust particular mechanics. There are people who are handicapped, right? They also don't have the ability. And the only reason I mention these groups of people is because many times it's easy for others to take advantage of them. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about those groups that are easily taken advantage of, there's an entire surah for those group of people. What surah is that? You guys know? The whole theme of the surah is authority and being taken advantage of. Surah An-Nisa. Right? So Surah An-Nisa, why did Allah use women? Because this group of people, it was very easy for others to take advantage of them. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses them in that way, it's very important for us to understand that it is not just women. Allah uses women as an example in the surah because they're men who are in authority. It's very easy for them to take advantage of them. Even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about family relations, when He talks about husbands, when He talks about wives, He addresses husbands more than He does wives. Why is that? Because the men have more responsibility. And when an individual has more responsibility, what happens? It is very easy for him to take advantage of that. It's very easy for him to abuse his authority. So when you have people who are in authority, even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about leaders, it's because they have more authority. It's very easy when a person has a position of power to take advantage of that power. So those individuals who are in those situations where they don't have the ability necessarily to constantly see what's going on with their car and getting it checked, and they need something reliable. And I'm not here to judge anybody's need. This is upon every individual to judge what their need is. Then in that situation, it would be permissible for a person to purchase a car like that. Naam, tafadhal.
For bank loans in general, some
Yeah.
scholars consider that as installments, like you're paying interest against installments rather than...
Yeah, so there are a lot of fine lines that come into dealing with that, because there are a number of scholars who will say that if the financing is done internally, if it's done within the organization itself, if I go to Nissan and Nissan has a finance department within Nissan, then it's not actually riba. It's another deal that they're giving me, or it's another transaction that they're giving me. They're saying that you can either purchase the car today for $15,000, or you can purchase it over 5 years, right? I think that's the more common one now. You can purchase it over 5 years for a price of $18,000. So they'll say that this is something that is permissible. There are some scholars, a lot of, like some of the Al-Hijrah, they'll say that even this is ribawi, but most of the scholars, this is something that they would allow. The same thing would come into play regardless of what I have to purchase. If I have a chair or if I have a phone, and I say to you like, hey, listen, you can take the phone off me today for 500, or if you want to pay it over the next 3 months, I'll give it to you for 600. And the reason for that is because, again, these assets, they tend to depreciate, right? They lose value over time. So for them, they're taking a risk. They're taking a risk with you over these payments, because what happens if a person defaults? What if he doesn't pay? So in order to calculate that risk or bring that risk in, they allow that change in the structure. I even know brothers who, because some of the car dealerships, they've become very wise to this, and they understand how this works. So I had a brother go to purchase a brand new car. It was like a $50,000 car. He needed it because he was in real estate. Now, some people might be like, oh, this is extravagant. But we have to understand how certain markets work. If I'm a real estate salesman, if I'm going to sell houses, you will find that most real estate salesmen, the person who's purchasing from them, they will trust them more if they see them come in a nice car. And unfortunately, that is the perception. So because he was in that situation, he went and he said, listen, I need to purchase this car. And he was like, I need something with 0%. He's like, oh, you need Sharia compliant. This is not Muslim. Like, this person was not Muslim. So you know what he did? All he did is he calculated the interest in to the price, and he said, okay, you're at 0% interest, and he sold him the car for the price, and he, after calculating the interest in to the transaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, in a very practical sense, what changed? Like, nothing changed. These guys are still getting the money that they were looking for. But again, you will have some scholars who will allow it. If Nissan has a finance department, if Toyota has a finance department, if Audi has a finance department, if it's interdepartmental because it's considered from the same company and it's not a third-party loan, they're technically they are making money off the money, but within the department, within the infrastructure, not something that's like an outside third party. So Allahu A'lam, and Allah knows best. Yes?
What about leases?
I'm sorry, leases. Leases are different, right? Leases like more of an extended rental. I know that there are some scholars who have certain issue with leasing. I think leasing is good for a certain group of people. If an individual has a business, it's a great way to write off a lot of your expenses in terms of leasing a car. A lot of the burden of the depreciation of the value, it's not put on you, because after a few years, you know, you're going to give the car back. As far as I'm concerned, vast majority of scholars that I've spoken to or have dealt with the issue, they consider leasing permissible. Any other questions? No. طيب طلب مني بعض الإخوة أن ألخص الخطبة يعني بالعربي لأنهم ما يفهمون الإنجليزية، فأنا أحاول لكم إن شاء الله أن ألخص بدقيقتين. فموضوع الخطبة اليوم حول العين. يعني قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: العين حق، فلو كان شيء سابق القدر سبقته العين، وإذا استغسلتم فاغسلوا. ففي هذا الحديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ثبت بأن العين حق، وهذا لا شك فيه. وفي نفس الحديث أعطانا علاج، فعلاج منه إذا واحد شعر بأنه حسبته العين فعليه أن يغتسل. فالغسل من الأسباب الغيبية التي أعطانا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، ومن صلاحنا الذي أعطانا الله عز وجل، منها قراءة القرآن، ومنها الأذكار، ومنها ما يغني عنه أو ما ينسى منه كثير من الناس، والدعاء. وهي من أقوى الأسلحة التي أعطانا الله عز وجل لضد العين. لكن عين حق لا شك فيه. لكن المشكلة في ثقافتنا أغلب الأشياء التي تصيبنا نظن بأنها من العين، لكن هذه يعني أنا ما أثق فيه وما أتوقع بأن أكثر الأشياء التي يعني يحصلنا يعني من العين. عموما نجد بأن هذه الأشياء من سوء التواجه وسوء التفاهم، وصراحة سوء التصرف فعلينا شيئين الله سبحانه وتعالى أعطانا ونصحنا بها. أولا الاستشارة، لابد نستشير الناس يعني قبل أن اختار الموضوع. والأمر الثاني الاستخارة حتى أطلب الخير وأطلب البركة من الله سبحانه وتعالى. فأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يحفظنا جميعا وجزاكم الله خير، والله أعلم، وصلى الله على خير خلق نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر.